Well, good afternoon and welcome to an FS Club webinar here in London. But today, through the glories of technology, we are able to provide a connection to Chile. And I am absolutely delighted to have Patricio Carmona, who's head of the Public Debt Office at the Ministry of Finance in Chile here, as our special guest today. Now, those of you who've been watching me on Twitter or LinkedIn will note that I have promoted this as possibly the most important webinar that we'll hold on FS Club this year if you're interested in anything to do with saving the planet. But you'll see why in a moment. And I'm absolutely thrilled that Patricio has taken the time to share with us possibly the most innovative piece of green finance that I have certainly seen in some time. Anyway, if you'll have a look, one of the great things about this is that we can deliver these things only because of the generosity and tolerance of our sponsors, who allow me and other Zien people to chair these fantastic sessions. And as you can see here, we range widely and freely across sponsors in technology, economics, and finance. And don't be afraid to step up and approach the team. But enough of the advertising. I think everybody's here today because they'd really like to understand what's going on down under. Now, the agenda today is fairly straightforward for those of you who've been to FS Club webinars. My job is to get out of the way as quickly as possible. I normally do so in 3 minutes, but I'm going to take an extra 2 minutes of your time today. Then we're going to have 20 minutes of Patricio explaining in detail what they're doing. The slides are absolutely fantastic and they're already posted. And then we'll have a question and answer session. So get your pencils sharp and be ready, because this is a unique opportunity. I'm going to answer just a couple of the fairly obvious questions. Yes, this is being recorded, and a recording will be up in approximately 2 working days, i.e. probably about late Wednesday, which you can show to friends and family and colleagues. Yes, I've mentioned the slides are up, but most importantly, if we do have a deluge of questions, all of the questions that are sent in with your email attached to them will get to Patricio, and he can connect with you if he wishes. So please do feel free to put in questions, comments, and observations into the chat room. We use the GoToWebinar chat facility, though, because I'm here with you, not on LinkedIn or Twitter or Signal or any other comms method, but we're using GoTo today, and that way Patricio will get everything that you contribute. So I said I wanted to do a little bit, and this next slide shows something which I put together a while back. It looks really at the city's story so far. And here I'm referring to the City of London, the Square Mile. Interestingly, the Square Mile passed its first Clean Air Act in 1953, 3 years ahead of the National Clean Air Act of '56. In fact, trailblazing and leading the way in a way that I think you're going to see Chile is doing today against some of the larger economies, trailblazing on a sovereign sustainability-linked policy performance bond. But we here in the city, and particularly at Zien actually, have been deeply involved, in particular starting in 2005 with the London Accord. And it was out of the London Accord that we made an observation as the green bond market was moving that 72% of the value of bonds was actually on the sovereign side. So approximately 65 or 70 sovereigns are nearly 3/4 of the debt market, whereas 10,000 companies are just over a quarter of the debt market. And we thought to ourselves, why couldn't somebody issue something a bit like an inflation-linked bond, but tied to their climate change targets? And this bond would therefore be a hedge against government policy changes or government policy risk. Well, we fought long and hard, and we made headway in a variety of areas, but not actually very well on our home ground here in London. And it was the French government who worked with us at COP in 2015 and published for us a book which we published with a dear friend of ours and Patricio's, Jalil Bouzidi, and you can see it there, that green booklet there, L'Innovation Financière au Service du Climat. And that book, which I must say was a bit painful for me as writing it in French, had the effect of creating a corporate bond market. And we saw the issuance typically from continental companies, Louis Dreyfus, Danone, Enel, in 2018 of these bonds linked to their outcomes. They pay more interest if they fail to make their outcomes. It wasn't a use of proceeds bond. Here's the money, here's where we're spending it. But all along, we'd always wanted to tackle that corporate market. And therefore, I was thrilled when in last year, Chile began working on such a bond, which we'll be hearing the story, and in March this year, issued a $2 billion bond that was 4 times oversubscribed. Truly a world leader. And Patricio will be going into the details. Now, just a little poll to help sample things before I hand over the floor. Quick poll here on how you feel about which country currently has the highest percentage of ESG related debt. This is really just to kind of get the brain cells going. So if you could please select one of Andorra, Chile, Hong Kong's autonomous region, Peru, or Serbia. Any thoughts there? Most welcome. It's a bit of a trick question here, and Patricio, I think, will be picking up on that. We'll just close that poll in a second and display the results. And the audience thinks it's Chile. Well, I'm not sure it was exactly a trick question, but that would have been the obvious result. But actually, the answer is Andorra, which you would think is the intriguing one there. But as a size of country. But the truth is that people are having a lot of ESG-related debt, and we need to figure out how to manage that and how to use it sensibly to actually help save the planet. And some of this is actually about taking a long-term view in line with business. Well, enough of me. Patricio, if I may say so, the floor is very much yours.
Thank you, Michael, and good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure for me to participate in this event. I'm here from Santiago, Chile, and thank you to ZGN and also to my friend Jalil Bouzidi also that encouraged to participate and contact me to have very, I assume the beginning of a relationship with this institution. So during this presentation, I will provide you an overview of the Chilean situation in relation to the ESG issues. I will give you also the contribution of the public debt management to Chile, specifically in connection with the ESG issuances in Chile. Next slide, please. So, in terms of, I think that our country contributes to a minimal percentage of the total greenhouse gas emission worldwide. Is only 0.2% of global CO2 emissions, but we are very vulnerable to this impact. So, in fact, if you look to the left-hand side, you can see that from the 90s to 2016, the growth of GHG emission grew 8% per year, and after we still about 2%. The pollution comes mainly from the energy sector, which includes the transport. So the increase of renewable energies since 2015 has been effectively very fundamental for Chile, and I will see that in next slide. The climate effect also includes the increased pollution in a large city, and you can see to the right-hand side. So if we don't react with concrete measure, effectively this will continue to increase, and it could get worse. So next slide, please. So Chile remains committed to the high standard of sustainable development, evidenced by, if you look to the left table, you can see the ambitiousness of the environmental commitment. We effectively, Chile is a pioneer within the sustainable finance space, but we have also some broad strategy in Chile, because the initiative in the financial field is not an isolated initiative. It's part of a general strategy broad, not only from the government, is a strategy of the country. So we have a regulatory framework front. We have the law of climate change, which basically establish the goal of carbon neutrality. This is most important. We have the energy efficiency law. We have very important targets and goal fronts related to the Paris Agreement, and we update this in 2020. We also have in Chile an important, I would like to see different policy action. We have the long-term energy planification. So this is very important. We have to update this every 5 years, and we have to make some projection for the next 30 years. We have an important national electromobility law that is very strong in order to increase the electricity in the public transportation, for example. We have also to push some industry, for example, the green hydrogen. We have established a national strategy for this industry. To the right-hand side, the first figure shows that under the base scenario for 2030, the target that we have by 2030 will not be reached. So this is the target behind the Paris Agreement. So to achieve our NDC goal, we must then to redouble our joint public and private effort in order to reach that. So this is the reason that, sorry, this is an ambitious target. Paris Agreement. It's not easy to reach a target, so this is very important. To the right-hand side below, you can see the evolution that we have in the energy matrix, or the size of the renewable energy in the energy electricity system in Chile. So at the end of 2021, the level of non-conventional renewable energies. There is a difference of non-conventional and renewable energy, because non-conventional not include the hydropower that have the installed capacity of higher than 20 megawatts. So this is the big difference. So we have a very strong projection of increase that, and to reach by 2000, for example, 35, the level 85% from the 27% that we have at the end of 2021. Next slide, please. So in terms of the contribution of the DMO to address the climate change and sustainable growth, I think that first, these instruments, label bonds, have become very fundamental for the financing of Chile. This is not an opportunistic strategy. This is a decision that we take in 2018 to incorporate the promotion of these kind of instruments as a strong target and objective of our strategy. We would like to support the infrastructure needs in Chile. We would like also to diversify our investor base, but this is a strong signal for the market. We also, I think that in this field, you can see the increase in the next slide, the participation of ESG bonds reaching right now about 31%, but we come from to be nothing in 2018, 3% in 2019, and now we have 31%. We have a very clear leadership in this market. So in 2019, Chile was the first country in America to issue green bonds. And this year we issue the first sovereign sustainability linked bonds. This is also something that I will, going back, why we make this issuance or new transaction. Next slide, please. So, making a little bit history of the Chilean experience. So we began publishing the green framework in 2019. We issued the bond in 2019. Then we published the sustainable framework in 2020, November. So with this framework, we issue not only green, but also sustainable bonds, social bonds, in foreign currency, in local currency. And 2022, in February, publish the framework of sustainability-linked bond framework. With this, I think that Chile is the only sovereign in the world to have executed all type of ESG bonds. And as I mentioned, the first one to have issue an SLB everywhere in the world. Next slide, please. In terms of the projects, I think that the most important is that the green bond are certified by CBI. We consider provide a very high degree of confidence. Since the beginning, Chile has certified about 10.8 billion, mainly in clean transportation. To the right-hand side, you can see we have about 10 in clean transportation, 42 million in renewable energy, green building, about 450, and 17 in water management. For the social portfolio, we have certified, or we have select more social projects for about 8.7 in 2021 and 10.6 in 2020. It was basically related to support for the elderly or people with special needs, support of low-income family, etc. And all of them are sector are aligned by ICMA recommendation and linked to particular SDG. Next slide, please. So going to the SLB, I think that as I mentioned, we published the framework in February, which sets the guidelines to issue the SLB, aligned with the SLB principle of ICMA. And we, because it's very important to meet the target of Paris Agreement update with the NDC in 2020, we decide to link our first SLB to the SPT based on the Paris Agreement. So the first one is to achieve annual GHG emission of 95 metric tons CO2 equivalent by 2030. And the other one is to achieve a maximum GHG budget of 1,100 metric CO2 equivalent between the period of 2020 to 2030. And we include also to achieve 60% of electricity generation derived from non-conventional renewable source by 2032. I think that consider this commitment, this is a strong commitment, the Ministry of Finance and also the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Energy, we have to monitor these goals. So this is first. Second, if required, it can be proposed measure to meet the target, so such as to regulation from green taxes. We have also a plan to establish or develop a national green taxonomy in order to allocate resources to green activities. This is some example that this kind of instrument represent for the Ministry of Finance for the country. So we issue for in March 2 billion, maturity 20 year. We calibrate the coupon step up with 12.5 or 25 basis points if one or two SPTs are not satisfied. So effectively, if we consider the 8 years full agreed up payment, this is equivalent of a potential penalty of envelope penalty of 200 basis points. So this is a strong cost for a credit rating for an issuer with a credit rating of Chile. 200 basis points is very significant. The transaction we began with an IPT of Treasury plus 204 basis points. This is not the most important. The most important is the tightening or the compression, because we began with another book of, you can see this in the graph, the maximum was about 8 billion. And we compressed, or we tightened the IPT. We finalized with a book around 6 billion. So my message here is that we know that the ESG investors are less sensible to the price and are more interested to participate in a deal like this first transaction of a sovereign issuing an SLB. I think that's an important message. The second one is we receive a very strong demand from investor ESG or sustainable responsible investor. The account was about 55% of the demand, and we allocate to 68% to the SRI investors. Next slide, please. I think that this slide shows basically the reporting, verification, SPO. I think that is very important because I think that for in order to give transparency, it's important to have a clear guideline of what will be included in the report, when we will publish the report, and who will be the institution that will make the verification of the different targets of measures. So here you can see that for the KPI, the first KPI, it will be reviewed and verified by the technical team of experts of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And the other one, it will be approved by an institution in Chile, independent. We also highlight that the SPO, this is the second party opinion, in the case of Chile, Sustainalytics established that this SLB bond framework is aligned with the 5 core components of the SLB principles. And also they expressed that the framework helps to meet for Chile the carbon neutrality. Next slide, please. I think that this is a summary, but I would like to go to the table below, and you can see the different allocation to ESG investor when we issue green, social, and sustainable and SLB. You can see that for the SLB in 2022, the allocation was 68%, so it was a strong allocation. In the issuance that we realized in the beginning of the year in January, it was a sustainable bond, so with the use of proceeds scheme, the allocation was 55%. We have had different results over time. The first issuance in 2019 in euro was impressive. It was about 76%. But in general, for the US transaction, the level of allocation to ESG was not more than 35, or in 2021 was about 50%. So in the case of the SLB, we saw an important additional demand, interest to participate in this transaction, especially when we issued the transaction with the bonds. It was at the end of February. The market was very volatile. We had in the middle of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, but we decided to access the markets, and I think that the demand was very impressive. It was, as Professor Michael mentioned, 4 times the total issuances. The competition between the investor was in terms of the compression, we from 200 to 200, 240 to 200 tightening. I think that it was one of the main tightening that I have had in the Chilean transaction. So I think that as a summary here, I think that the Chile has ESG highlight is the ability to link our funding needs with its ESG commitment. We are fostering investment in clean transportation, and we provide support also to vulnerable sector of the society. Going to the last slides, I think that the increase from 2018, 3% to 31% is very impressive. Now Chile ranked third behind Andorra and Hong Kong. So no, we are not the first. But we expect that in the next 4 years, we have a very formal and strong commitment. We would like to reach, to be close to 50% of our debt to have some ESG denomination. In terms of size, you can see that the first one is France, second Germany, but Chile is 34 billion. So I think that is I'm very it's enough for Chile to have this kind of number, and I would like to say that I'm very happy to share this presentation with all of you, and back to you, Michael, for the Q&A. Thank you.
Patricio, thank you so very, very much. We've been absolutely thrilled about this. I'm just before we get cracking, I'm going to ask Peter to launch a poll, please, just to get a flavor of some of the numbers, folks. So in 2020, the corporate sustainability-linked policy performance bond market, and I mentioned the likes of Enel and Louis Dreyfus, etc. In fact, the first one was issued in the UK last year in 2021 in January by TRIG, the Renewable Infrastructure Group, for about 500 million. So the market in 2021 was, the market in 2020 was $11 billion. What do you think it was in 2021? 25, 50, 75, or more than US 100 billion? And whilst you're answering that poll, we're just getting those results in, Patricio, collecting the responses. One of the great things about FS Club is everybody's very quick off the buzzers and very opinionated. So we'll just close that poll and present the results. And interesting, actually better than I thought. Yes, it grew rapidly. Believe it or not, it was more than 100 billion. The actual correct answer, which 12% of you got, would have been $110 billion. So it pretty much went vertical in a single year from 11 billion to 110 billion. And there's every potential, I would contend, for this to potentially happen in the sovereign market. Anyway, back to the questions. So lots of questions here for you, Patricio, and please do kick in, folks. Just a quick one from Clive Bullen. Patricio, are you aware of any other countries that are looking at this? For example, are the USA, India, or China considering something similar, or some of the other governments in South America?
So you have Uruguay make the issuance 3 or 4 weeks ago. Another institution, another country, I'm not informed about this. They're very interesting to know our experience, but I'm not sure that there are very strong commitment to move forward with this new transaction in the very short term. But maybe if we continue to issue, in the case of Chile, and demonstrating that it's an instrument that have an important demand, maybe we will see in the coming year new sovereign. But I think that our goal is also to push the issuance of local corporates. I think that, as I mentioned, some institutions in Chile have issued SLB. CMPC is a local corporate that issue SLB, not in the market, but have some credit with syndicate banks. But I understand that they will like to go to the market to issue SLB. We have another institutions also in Chile have a strong interest to use the lead. So we think that this new market is nascent, at least for the sovereign, for the corporates, is very important. As you can see, the impressive increase in only 3 or 4 years, 2021 and 22, it was impressive. The increase in this segment. So I think that it will continue to increase over time.
Sarah Jones, firstly, Sarah says she expresses much admiration for your solid and inspiring leadership on the sovereign sustainability linked policy performance bonds. I am based in Buenos Aires and familiar with the difficulties of achieving a realistic interest rate on sovereign debt. I think it is very important to highlight that the debt investment raised with SSLB can be used for general development goals, for example, education and healthcare, as well as demonstrate government commitment to a climate change agenda. Can you comment on this?
Yes, so if I understood well the question, I think that this is correct. So SLB, there is no matching to specific product. The message, or not the message, the consequence to issue SLB is that the government will make all the effort in order to not pay the penalty. So as the penalty is important for the government or for the Ministry of Finance, this is why I mentioned that we are monitoring this year, next year, the different policy. If we need to make some change in regulation, for example, or to include some green tax or whatever, we will do that. So because we don't like to pay the penalty. So this is one of the reasons that we expect to increase the size of SLB to demonstrate that the cost to not meet the target will have a higher impact in the cost of the public services.
Yeah, it's interesting because Hugh Purser early on asked a question. He said in the USA, the Biden environmental measures have been described as all carrots, all incentives, and no sticks, no punishment. In other words, everybody wins. But Chile's policies are quite a bit of stick, aren't they? If you fail to make them, you're going to be bearing quite a significant cost there. Just to turn to another point here from Christopher Gleedle. Again, thank you so much for the excellent presentation. I understand that funds raised are not tied to a specific project, and SLBs are issued with specific sustainability performance targets, which contain key performance indicators, KPIs, such as reduction in Scope 1 and 2 emissions by 2030. What controls do you have in place that measure the impact from the relationship of all projects under the scheme and ensures that one project does not run into another negatively to affect the total outcome of the individually measured projects? In short, are you doing a portfolio management of the whole area together, of all the projects?
Yes, we plan to do that. So remember that we issued this year the SLB, the number of, for example, of 2020, we expect to publish this next year. So we have in 2018, the number of metric tons CO2 equivalent in Chile is 112. Mm-hmm. So the target of 95 metric tons CO2 equivalent means a reduction of an importance from the 112 is important. And to meet this, I think that we have many tools. The first one, as I show in the presentation, is the increase of non-conventional renewable energy. That is very important to go or to address the decarbonization plan that we have in Chile. So the only way to reach the target is decarbonization of the economy, to increase the public transportation in green public transportation, not only in the metro, but also the railroad in the country. We also have the electromobility, the public transportation, the electric buses in Chile. We expect to increase this over time. And in line with the target, we can accelerate more and projects for example, the public transportation, the electric buses. So we have different tools in order to reach targets. And as the person here mentioned, is he right? For example, the Paris Agreement is an agreement, is a commitment of Chile, but there is no penalty if we, for example, will not reach this target. Oh, sorry, we cannot do because you can imagine different justification. But in the case of SLB, there is a strong consequence to not reach target. This is a financial cost. So I think that is very strong. The message when we explain this SLB for sovereign like Chile, it's not a big country. We are not the most important country that issue CO2 in the world, but for Chile at least, it will be very important, this reduction. I don't remember that I mentioned that the SPO consider that these two KPIs are considered very ambitious or highly ambitious. So it's not something that is very straightforward. It's something that for the government, we have to make a very important effort. And both are in line with the increase of temperature lower than 1.5 degrees Celsius. So this is the reason also that they make an evaluation of highly ambitious. So I think that's to respond to the question of the colleague here.
Good. Got a few more questions before we close. Ian Harris of Zien says, fascinating talk. Chile is certainly ahead of most other countries with ESG bonds, especially sustainability policy performance bonds. I note that Chile has a relatively low debt to GDP ratio compared with most G20 countries. Do you think that sustainability policy performance bonds might work well politically and or economically in nations with significantly higher levels of debt than that of Chile?
Yes, I'm not sure. I think that it's not depend on the level of the debt. Effectively, Chile will have by the end of this year about 39% approximately of GDP, but we increase from the last 5-6 years because of the pandemic situation and also I think mainly pandemic situation. From the 36, 37 that we had 3 years ago. I think it's not dependent. You can have very low level. For example, Andorra have very low level of debt, and they issue only green bonds. So this reason that they have about more than 80%. So it's not a requirement to have a high level of debt. Maybe some big issue like, I don't know, Germany, France, Belgium, Poland, or UK have important needs every year. So for them, it's not easy to have a level of like Chile, to have more than 31% of the debt denominated with some ESG level. But I'm not sure that there is a very strong or direct relationship between level of debt and the capacity to have an ESG denomination in the portfolio debt. I'm not sure. I know, Michael, if you have any thought about this, but I'm not sure.
Well, I'm kind of with you. I think that what you see is a concomitant effect. So if your level of debt is low, then it really doesn't matter much to you, the interest rates and all that. But as it gets higher and higher, all of your targets become important. So your inflation target would reverberate in terms of the amount that you'd be paying in basis points on your sustainability linked, et cetera, and it just gets tighter and tighter and more important to a degree. I guess we saw that here in the United Kingdom 4 or 5 weeks ago when people began to actually get scared. There was a very famous quote by James Carville. He was an advisor to Bill Clinton, and he said that were he reincarnated, he would choose to return as the bond markets, because then he could intimidate anyone. But then there was a period, I remember around 2012 and 2013, as we were adjusting to low interest rates, we had people, for example, like the economist John Kay here, whom we like, but he claimed that the power of the bond markets is a bluff waiting to be called. So this does seem to go back and forth as to how much emphasis the bond markets have, but the most recent evidence is quite a bit. Just a couple of quick questions before the close then, if I may. One is, the original paper that we wrote on this subject some 16 years ago or whatever was called Guilty Green Government, and we were looking at this approach not just in the climate change area but in others. A good example was literacy, and there was in fact a sukuk issued in Malaysia 3 years ago which was tied to its literacy targets. So as an investor, perhaps setting up a factory in Malaysia, saying that I need to have skilled workers, how do I guarantee it? The government has issued these bonds, which will go up if the educational attainment goes down. So you will have a skilled workforce, or we will compensate you for it. Does Chile have any plans to issue bonds that are based on other policies other than climate change?
Actually, yes. We would like to, for example, SLB related to some other in the field of environment, some area related to mitigation, to adaptation. So, for example, the ocean protection, like the blue bonds, but in the area of SLB could be an option. The problem there is to have a process of verification of the KPI. So this is the first problem. We have also have some plan to explore some SLB in the social field. For example, in terms of Gini index, could be a KPI very interesting. There is some process there. We have some doubt regarding the verification because there is local verification or local calculation. So, but we can try to find some fine tuning there in order to. But the second problem is to establish the targets. Which target we have for Chile, in which horizon, 5 year, 10 year, which will be the level. We have also, as intelligence, analyzing the possibility to issue some gender bonds. Could be also in the use of proceeds scheme or in the SLB scheme. So we have some idea there in order to not because we would like to innovate, but we think that if the market is there, if we can also incorporate other strategy in a very broad strategy to have a sustainable growth in Chile. I think that all these targets and all these instruments could be very useful for the DMO, but also for the country.
We've run to the end of time. I'm going to squeeze one very final question, if you could answer quickly, or you may not wish to. But Richard Burge, who is head of the Chamber of Commerce here, asking, Patricio, you seem to have undertaken this during a period of dramatic political change. It's really extraordinarily well done, but how did you do it through the change that's been going on with, for example, the constitutional vote, but also the change of government from right to left? If you don't feel like answering it, we'd understand, but if you did, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that exactly. It's a question that is sensible. We are in the middle discussion in Chile in order to move forward with a new process to have a new constitution. I think that it's a transparent, very democratic discussion. I think that we don't know what will be the result of a new constitution, so I'm not sure if I can respond to the question, but my feeling is a very personal opinion, is that it will be a better situation. It will eliminate uncertainty in Chile. We will have more social rights in the constitution, I'm sure. We will have also more commitment in the constitution related to the environment protection and also related to the fight against the global warming. So I think that from the current constitution, I think that the new constitution, if this is my opinion, we will have a very better situation that we had currently.
Patricio, sadly, we've come to the end of time, but I really have 3 rounds of thanks. Firstly, if I may, to our sponsors. It's been a delight to have you allow us to do so many webinars, but especially on a subject dear to our heart, finance and the new application of this to solving one of the world's great problems, climate change. Secondly, I'd like to thank you, the audience, for participating. You can see here some of the forthcoming events that we have ahead. As ever, do check out the website, but I would like to name check. There's one person who is on the call today, and I'm delighted that he's here. And I'd like to say, Patricio, Jalil Bouzidi is here, the co-author of the paper with us, and who is absolutely instrumental as your friend in moving this thinking forward. So Jalil, a hearty thank you and congratulations as well. We're delighted that you're here. And if I may, most of all, Patricio, I know that this was something that you've worked enormously on as a project, but also enormously on this webinar. An immense consolidation of facts and presented in an enormously clear way. We truly, truly appreciate your time today, and we thank you most sincerely. And may we wish you and the government and the people of Chile every success in this novel approach to solving one of our biggest challenges.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Michael, and everybody. Thank you for your attention, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.